No, it was not sexually charged. I did not reply after she told me she was 15. I said nothing sexual.
After dealing with so many creeps, you'd think nothing would faze Chris anymore. But then this dude came along. From all the Jeffs Chris has met in his life, this one has to be the worst one. See that dude here? Well, that's Jeff. Or how the internet likes to call him, Generous Jeff. And trust me, there's a whole story behind that nickname, but you're not ready for it just yet. So here's how things went. Chris was just doing his usual thing, busting bad guys and nabbing creeps left and right. He hadn't even wrapped up with one when the team got word that another no-gooder was on their way in.
It's under renovation, we're trying to paint and everything,
So this dude decided to come to the Sting house to fulfill his sick fantasies with someone who could pass off as his daughter. Jeff was probably feeling pretty lucky when he walked through those doors, but as soon as he stepped inside, things took a nosedive.
We're gonna need you to know that have a seat. Just have a seat right there.
Well, if you're used to watching TCAP, here's how Takedown is different. Back then, morons had at least a minute or two to interact with the setup before Chris decided to stop the party. But in Takedown, the team jumps right in without wasting any time and gets to work, which is exactly what happened with Jeff. And the dude was full of excuses.
Take your hands out of your. Just donate her money. You're gonna
That's
donate her
why I
money.
have some of my lemon heads.
Read the text.
Donate her some money? What did she look like to you? A charity case? I mean, come on. See, usually when the showdown starts, it's Chris who does the talking, but not in this case.
Did you read the text? Oh yeah, I read that.
Hey, buddy, here's some advice. Why don't shut up with questions and let Chris do his job? And so it all began. Chris with his questions.
Did you bring condoms? Read it. Did you bring condoms?
The fact that Chris jumped from asking a basic question like what's his name to straight up asking him whether he brought a rubber shows that he was all about business. Spoiler alert, the dude did bring them along. And nope, he had no shame admitting it.
I brought her condoms. Yes. You brought her condoms.
And guess what was his reason to carry them around?
No, because I didn't want her to have unsafe sex with men. That's why.
If you haven't guessed already, he was adamant on playing the Good Samaritan. Okay, let's believe him. You know, give him the benefit of the doubt, but then explain this.
Half hour. I'm white and 50 years old. You're young and hot.
You're young and hot.
It's not gonna take much effort, LOL.
And mind you, this was when he believed the setup to be 19, which according to his logic was definitely not creepy. But let's take a moment to take this news in first. A decaying 50-year-old dude getting on with a 19-year-old. Sure, a 19-year-old is an adult, but barely. The age gap was just too huge to be considered normal. But hey, let's get back to the chat logs, cause it definitely didn't end there. The setup soon enough revealed her true age, which, by the way, I'm sure you can guess how far below legal it was. Now, you'd think Jeff, who claimed to be a good Samaritan, would back off right then and there, right? But guess what? He actually did, or at least tried to. What's more is that he started going on about how she shouldn't be doing stuff like that at her age, trying to act all concerned and righteous. Then, out of nowhere, he was like, why don't I lend you a hand with some money? It's like he was trying to be her knight in shining armor or something. But the next thing he said was beyond shocking.
Can I actually see you and make a decision?
So a moment ago, this guy was in full guardian mode, and now this. Was this guy weighing whether to yield to his desires or simply pay up and move on with the rest of the day? I guess we'll soon get an answer to that as well.
I'm so curious. Okay, do you have a room?
Oh, did that catch you off guard? Cause honestly, it didn't surprise me one bit. It seems like a lot of guys end up caving to their impulses and just being jerks, you know? But guess what was the next question he dropped? I mean, the guy was basically propositioning her. And what's more is that he wasn't just talking, but actually buying her time. I mean, disgusting doesn't even cover it. So imagine the secondhand embarrassment the viewers must have felt for him when he decided to lie through his teeth during questioning.
I was gonna donate her money. That's it. I brought her pops.
So here's my simple question. Why not just wire her the money? If your aim was to steer her in the right direction, get her to take down the post, and give her some financial help, why bother showing up at the Sting house instead? He could have come up with a better lie, but I guess he decided to complicate things.
Listen, I don't feel right about this. I'm gonna come there and I'm just gonna donate you money.
What's more infuriating is how he kept asking whether Chris even read the chat.
Did you read the text?
I did read the text.
Okay.
However, Chris saw right through him, which is why he decided to poke a bit of fun and asked if he was into religion or something. And what do you know, Jeff's answer didn't come as a surprise.
Yes, definitely.
So you were just a good Samaritan.
I'm saying because of her age, I was being a good Samaritan, absolutely.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how he earned himself the title Generous Jeff. Imagine you're doing this big generous deed, but in reality, it's twisted beyond belief. And it's not like he was clueless. He knew exactly what he was up to. He understood the stakes, he knew it was dead wrong, yet he went ahead with it and then had the audacity to flat out lie when caught red-handed. I mean, come on, it's one thing to be delusional, but knowingly crossing that line? That's a whole new level. To make matters even worse, guess where he decided to meet the decoy?
Skip the games. Skip the games.
So if you're not familiar with skip the game websites, think of them like online spots for adults looking to get laid. It's where people go to set up dates with the main goal of getting intimate. But the dude decided to further explain himself.
My intent originally was to find a girl.
They have sex with.
Not a child. Not a child, a woman.
Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we all know the girl he met. She was nowhere near the required age limit, far from what you'd call a woman. And even after finding out her real age, he didn't exactly hit the brake. And Chris had the same concern.
Specifically,
Until she said she was 15 until she said she was 15.
Like, sir, you're 50, it's about time you grow up and take some accountability. But looks like he was in no mood to.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
But that's not all. When Chris asked what other things he brought along, without a beat, Jeff admitted to bringing pops just like the decoy demanded. But that's not the only thing.
Because she said she was having unsafe sex with men.
Yeah, he brought rubber too, but we already knew that. Talking about rubber, what was his grand plan with it? Was he genuinely thinking he'd just hand them over and casually say, "Here, use these and everything will be fine," as though that somehow justifies being intimate at such a young age? Some good Samaritan he is, right? His excuses were seriously starting to wear thin, but the next thing he brought, what excuse did he have for that?
Did you bring weed?
Yes, I have weed somewhere.
As if things weren't bad enough, he just had to go and make things worse by bringing the greens too. So what was his excuse this time, you ask?
I was gonna give it to her.
We're just gonna give her the weed.
Yes.
Were you gonna smoke it with her?
Possibly.
Okay, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You had the weed on you, but you weren't planning on sharing it with her. Instead, you were thinking of just smoking together? It's clear his morals were too far gone for a 50-year-old. But then again, you can't judge him for something like this when he has clearly done things far worse. Even Chris found his answer to be weird. So when questioned further of what exactly was his plan after the smoke session, guess what Jeff had to say?
I wanted to talk her out of doing this. That's what I wanted her to do.
Wow, this is exhausting. What happened to creativity? Or did that die along with his moral? Chris, having dealt with people like him, saw right through him.
You
Something's
wanted to
wrong.
talk her into having sex.
Absolutely not.
You wouldn't believe the level of denial this guy was operating on. Like, it's not just that he's trying to brush off the fact that he did something really messed up, but he was also completely in denial about being caught and having to face the music for it. Him saying absolutely not repeatedly is almost as if he was trying to convince his own self of the lies he created. Anyway, when Chris asked what he did for a living, it turns out the dude was retired. But well, Jeff decided to reveal something more.
Still have a wife and children, you know.
Yep, you heard that right. This guy had a whole family. I'm talking wife and kids. 3 kids to be exact. And do you want to know the worst part? 2 of his kids were the same age as the decoy he was chatting up with. If that doesn't disgust you, I don't know what will. And Chris, he got all fired up.
Fellow came over to hang out and smoke weed with your
Right.
14-year-old.
Yeah, Chris really hit the nail on the head with that question. You'd figure Jeff, being a parent himself, would have a tough time coming up with an answer, right? Not really.
How would
Well,
you feel about
my
that?
14-year-old does smoke weed.
Okay, but
Alright, so let me break this down for you. It's not just that he was a threat to women, which is bad enough on its own, but he was also dropping the ball big time in the parenting department. I mean, come on, letting a 14-year-old light up? That's like the height of parental failure. And let's not forget how casually he said that as if it was the most normal thing to do. Later, he dug his own grave when Chris asked how he would feel if a grown man, say his own age, showed up at his house wanting to light up some greens with his 14-year-old daughter. So what was his answer?
I would escort him off the property.
with weed and condoms.
I would escort him off the property.
Oh wait, there's more.
Physically assault him.
So, let's talk about hypocrisy, shall we? When it's his own flesh and blood involved, suddenly he's got this moral compass that he conveniently pulls out of nowhere. Like, he was all about doing the right thing and even throwing punches if he has to, even if it means taking on someone who's doing the exact same messed up stuff he was doing right now. It's like he's got this selective sense of justice or something, and it's seriously frustrating to witness. So, like, where did his conscience vanish when it came to the decoy? It's wild how he didn't even pause to consider consider how messed up this whole thing was. Maybe he was just thinking, as long as it's not my own daughter, it's all good. But seriously, that's messed up. Chris, he wasn't having it with Jeff. He even threw the same excuse back at his way and see how he'd react.
What if he told you, I was just here to help her out, dude?
Classic Chris, am I right? Getting back to his response, well, there wasn't really much of it. You could say he was struggling, and you bet it was satisfying to watch. I honestly know where he was going with it.
After she said she was 15, didn't press the issue.
And before you know it, he changed the subject.
I think that everybody's guilty. I understand. I get it. I really do. Okay?
Well, Jeff, sorry to break it to you, but everyone who makes it to the house is guilty. But Jeff couldn't stop swearing he'd never even thought about getting with a girl that young, let alone actually trying. Like, seriously? Who did he think he was fooling? Sorry, buddy, but that's not convincing anyone.
Hey, I know it seems to you. That's your opinion. You keep saying that.
But if Jeff is stubborn, then so is Chris. He slapped him with facts, even though the freak didn't want to hear it. But Jeff, it seems like he had an excuse for that as well.
That kind of person that calls the authorities. I live in the hood in Saginaw, okay? Police are not our friend, okay?
Not to be all judgmental, but based on how this guy's going, I can imagine why. And Chris had the perfect response to his excuse.
Well, they're not your friend today.
Well, I didn't do anything wrong.
Can you believe this guy? Seeing someone in so much denial is more exhausting than actually being in one. Chris kept reinforcing why Jeff showed up at the house, but Jeff wasn't having it.
No, it was not sexually charged. I did not reply after she told me she was 15. I said nothing sexual.
Oh, this dude believed he could make up a lie and get away with it, but clearly Chris wasn't gonna believe any of his crap. But Jeff, he was starting to get heated.
Innuendos, I said to her specifically.
At this point, you can't even say he was talking. The guy was straight up shouting as if that would get the point across. You know that saying, people who always seem to be wrong are usually the ones making the most noise? So, Jeff just wouldn't quit going on about how he was only swinging by the house to hand over the money. It was like he was trying to play mind games with Chris, trying to convince him that the conversations he had were squeaky clean, devoid of any hint of anything remotely inappropriate. But Chris had the best comeback.
All the time.
Okay, sure.
And it's
It's not bull.
Well, if you're wondering what a person in denial looks like, then watch this.
You're wrong. I don't.
What should happen to you?
Isn't it just so ironic? He was all about acting like the caring parent, but he couldn't even step up for his own kid. Like, it's pretty obvious he's just looking out for himself here. Desperation at its best. If he was truly a decent person, he should have just dialed the cops and actually helped out instead of faking it. Like, come on, why bother with the fake support? But guess what he went on to say?
Been married, divorced. There's times that I want to be satisfied by a woman.
Oh no, there was no stopping this guy. He could run his mouth all day long. So basically, after going through a bunch of failed marriages, the dude was just looking for some physical affection, which is why he landed on that website. In my opinion, it seems like Jeff was just desperate to get on with someone and he couldn't care less about their age. But what's really infuriating is how he kept trying to defend himself regardless of all the proof the team had. He sure had the chance to back off and he didn't. It was a choice he made. But wait, the story doesn't end there. When Chris finally revealed who he was expecting Jeff to be shocked. But guess what? Jeff's reaction totally flipped the script and left Chris the one in shock.
Chris Hansen.
I know who you are.
You know who I am?
Well, of course, I watch TV. I'm 49 years old. Come on.
That's right. Turns out Jeff knew Chris pretty well. So one thing's clear. He knew there was a high chance of him getting caught, and yet he took the risk to show up. Looks like his desires outweighed his moral. Upon the big revelation, Chris wanted to know if there was anything else he'd like to say. Well, turns out Jeff had a lot to share.
Bad men.
Just not you.
You didn't catch me.
Who's gonna tell him that he was one among the bad men? Now get this, usually men who show up here are all scared shitless of being recorded. Some even go to the extent of hiding their face as if that's gonna do anything. But not this guy.
No matter what, this goes on TV. I have to sign something or no?
No.
Okay. I will if you want me to.
Don't worry, Jeff. They would have done it anyway. He was probably counting on the internet and everyone out there seeing him the way he portrayed himself. As a helpful person, you know, a good Samaritan type. Unbeknownst to him, the team orchestrating the show went ahead and revealed on live television, unveiling everything from his chat logs to his endless stream of excuses that just didn't cut it. As a result, the audience was treated to a full-on expose, revealing everything under the sun except for him being a Good Samaritan. And just like that, he was arrested right in that house. Jeff was then taken for questioning, but hey, let's check out his baggage, shall we?
Rolling papers, the soda pop you asked for.
Of course, he had the love glove. So after that episode aired, things took a pretty serious turn. Jeff was hit with 3 felony charges because of some seriously messed up stuff, like being physically inappropriate and abusive towards someone who wasn't even old enough to legally consent. And to top it off, he got charged for using a computer to commit a crime. It's like a whole mess of legal trouble coming his way. So rumor has it that those charges got scrapped because apparently the chat logs seemed kind of fuzzy, not really giving away what he was truly up to, you know? Right now, you could say he's out and about, free to roam the streets without a care in the world. Talk about unfair. So, would you like me to feature more episodes from Takedown with Chris? Let me know in the comments, or you could also leave me a message on my social media pages. And please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notification. And hey, if you thought this video was crazy, wait till you see the next one. It's even crazier.